Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the podcast Born to Grow. And in today's podcast, we have Shrey Saxena from Grow Diesel. Welcome, Shrey. Thank you so much for doing this. Happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Pooja. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Great. So, I want to start with the introduction of Grow Diesel. So, Grow Diesel is dedicated to renewable oil and gas exploration and production. So, the core business is to produce and sell renewable clean fuels, right?
Right, that's right.
So let's talk about the story of Grow Diesel. I know it was started by your father, Mr. Atul Saxena. So biofuel is a very rare idea. So rare that when I went onto the internet and looked for all the companies which are engaged in this biofuel business, a small list of 71 companies came up as the first result. How did your father decide that this is something he wants to start? He wants to create a business out of it. What is the story behind Grow Diesel?
Right. So I'm pretty happy to be here, Pooja. Thank you for that question, first of all. And Grow Diesel was actually an accident, if you ask me. And it was pure accident, absolute accident. So my dad was, before this, my dad was working with United Nations. And his job was to bring all the environment friendly technologies in the manufacturing sector to India. So he used to travel the world, attend different conferences, and he used to bring the energy efficient technologies for the manufacturing system into India. So one fine day it happened. He was in London. He was attending some conference, and the conference was on renewable energy. And that's when he heard this term biofuel for the very first time. I mean, before that, he wasn't aware about the whole thing.
Which year?
It was year 2000,
Oh,
early 2000.
okay.
So he saw an opportunity that the whole world is moving towards biofuels because fossil fuels is a commodity which will end one day. But biofuels is something which can be reproduced by anyone and just anyone. The machinery can be set up by anyone. The fuel can be produced locally. So there were a lot of merits that he saw at that point of time, and he came back to India. He started working in this direction, and he never looked back. And the thing is that even if we talk, it's been 20 years, almost 20 years now. But even if you ask me that where are biofuels currently, where are we
Mm.
heading? We are still not even in the nursery class. And I'm talking about our whole country. If we talk about biofuels, we are still in the nursery class. So imagine it's been 20 years since then, since he started working in this sector. But even till date, the whole industry is still in a very nascent stage. But a lot of good things are happening, and I'm happy that we are one of the early movers in this field.
And what do you think is the reason behind this delay, that it's been 20 years and you're saying that we're still in nursery class? So why hasn't been there so much progress as in other sectors? Like, you look at technology, we've grown so much in the past 20 years, but why not in this sector?
Right. So first of all, we need to understand about renewable energy. So whenever someone hears the term renewable, the first thing that comes to anyone's mind is solar. Okay, but that's not true. Renewable energy is of multiple types, and biofuel is one of the renewable energies. So in year 2008, uh, a lot of things started happening in the solar sector. So basically, 2008 was the year when a lot of policies were starting out. Government was sending a lot of policies. They were formulating a lot of policies. So what happened from year 2008 till year 2015, there was a very big boost in the solar industry. And today, now we all know how big the solar industry is in India.
Yeah.
However, what was happening in year 2008 happened with the biofuel sector in India in 2018. So government rolled out the national biofuel policy in year 2018, after which a lot of things started happening. So a lot of funding was made available. RBI even included this particular sector in the priority sector lending. So I think things definitely took time. And if you ask me what has been the biggest reason for this particular thing, is because biofuel is one of the sources from which biofuels is made is waste. Okay, So waste that you and I generate. And the biggest challenge in India is that waste segregation doesn't happen. Okay, so even if you see for yourself, I'm not sure that whether you segregate your waste or not. But most of the people, they just put everything in the one bin, and whether it's their wet waste or their plastic waste, and they just wrap it up in a polythene and they just give it to the rat picker. Now, what happens is that when we are talking about waste to biofuels, there are two different technologies, one for the wet waste and one for the dry waste. So, what generally happens is that we need segregated waste. Okay, of course, there are certain technologies through which we can also process the mixed waste, but those are not very mature and those are not very successful or efficient right now.
Cost efficient, right? They're also not very cost efficient. That's what I.
Uh, I wouldn't. Yeah, cost efficient is another factor. I mean, in technical terms, it's not that efficient as of
Okay.
now.
Okay.
So the biggest problem that has been in this particular industry is of waste segregation that we talk about. So that was one major challenge because of which this industry is yet to take off. But there have been a lot of policies like Municipal Solid Waste Rules 2016, which mandates every municipal corporation to install such machines that convert waste into biofuel. Then we have this national biofuel policy. Now, recently, we also have this Satat scheme by the Petroleum Ministry, in which all the big oil companies like Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum, Gas Authority of India Limited, they can do a complete buyback agreement of the whole product that a biofuel producer is producing. So, all these major policies that have come, it's just a matter of 4 5 years. And whenever a policy is framed, it takes at least 5 to 8 years to see the actual ground level implementation. So I think we are in the very right direction, and the future is very near of biofuels in India specifically.
Sounds great, man. So I want to talk about a little technical stuff here. So in
Sure.
India, the development of biofuels is mainly centered around the cultivation and processing of jatropha plant seeds, right? So what method is Grow Diesel your company is using? I mean, do you disclose it, or is it something, some sort of a secret that you keep?
So I'll tell you that. So I think you have done a little bit of research that
Yeah.
you mentioned Jatropha. So Pooja, Jatropha is one of the sources from which biofuel can be made. So what happened in year from between year 2006 and 2008, there was a lot of boom in the Jatropha, and what started happening, unfortunately, it did not take off in India, and the major reason was that Jatropha has more than 200 species. Okay, however, out of those 200 species, only two species are the high oil yielding species.
Hmm.
Okay, so
40%, if I'm not wrong. 40%.
yeah, that's right. So only two species are there, which can yield a good amount of oil. However, every species is identical. And what started happening in the market that people were not aware about it, and a lot of people started selling the wrong species to the farmers. And they used to say diesel ka ped hai, diesel ka ped le lo. And a lot of farmers started buying that, and a lot of companies started doing Jatropha plantation, but with the wrong species. So
Hmm.
what happened that a lot of suicides started happening, and the whole industry was hit by a huge loss just because the people did not have the right species of Jatropha. And at that time, it was even a tough time for us because a lot of there was so much negativity around this whole subject, and it was all because of the people who did not have the right knowledge about this field. But if you ask me that, it was a blessing in disguise because after that year, we started specifically working on technologies from which we could convert waste into biofuel. So Jatropha was definitely one of the feedstocks, but then from then we transitioned into waste. So that because waste was something which was another problem, so we wanted to eliminate that, and we and also waste has a lot of hydrocarbon which
Hmm.
can be converted into biofuel. So we started working in that direction, and since then we have majorly worked in waste to biofuel sector only.
Okay, okay. So now the output, the finished output that you produce can be used to run vehicles, or the vehicles that we use, or only for the public transport vehicles.
Okay, so basically, there are, first of all, you need to understand that biofuel is of three types. It's of solid. It's in three forms: solid, liquid, and gaseous. So when
Hmm.
we talk about gaseous waste, gaseous biofuel, it is in the form of biogas, which is extracted from the organic waste, slaughterhouse waste, agriculture waste. So any biodegradable waste can be converted into bio CNG. Okay,
Hmm.
biogas. So what happens is that if we need to use that biogas for vehicles, it is known as bio CNG, bio compressed natural gas. If
Hmm.
we have to use it for cooking, we call it bio PNG, bio piped natural gas. The only difference between both the things is of the compression. So in if you see the CNG vehicles, there the kind of pressure that is applied from which the kind of pressure that is applied to fill our gas cylinders, it's very high. That is why it is known as compressed natural gas. So
Hmm.
in my home, it is being delivered through pipelines. But technically, the gases are completely same. It's just the difference of pressure. If you are going into the technicals, technically the composition is methane only. It's CH4 only. But
Hmm.
the only difference is of the pressure. So it can be used for cooking. It could be used to run your vehicles. It could be even used to generate an electricity. So if we put a generator, a biogas generator, it can be used to generate electricity as well.
Hmm. I would like to go more in detail after this podcast because this is something I'm really interested in. So now let's discuss about the problem with waste management. So I was going through the video that you had shared with me, and in that video, it was showed uh, that Delhi alone produces 9,000 metric tons of municipal solid waste in a day, which means 375 metric ton per hour and closely around 6.7 metric tons per minute. And as we talk, 104 kg of waste is already produced every second. So, and this data is relating to the year 2016, and it's predicted that by 2021, Delhi alone will be producing 19,000 metric tons of waste every day. What are the other concerning facts to which you would like to draw the attention of the listeners of this podcast?
Right. So I think yes, you have done quite a bit of the research, and as of now, if we talk about the whole country, I will not just specifically talking about Delhi or Mumbai. Delhi and Mumbai are definitely the biggest waste generators of the whole country, followed by the 500 different cities. So every day in India, as per the Planning Commission's report, Planning Commission is now Niti Aayog. As per their report, more than 1 lakh metric tons of waste is generated every single day in India, out of which 51% is wet waste, or what we call as organic waste.
Which
Okay,
is easily decomposable.
yeah, which is biodegradable, the kitchen
Yeah.
waste. So let's say we eat banana, the peels of the banana, and all these waste. So out of the 1 lakh metric tons, 51% is organic waste. 17% is the recyclable waste, such as glass, plastic, metals, rubber. So all these things are recyclable. And the rest, 32% we talk about is the inert waste, like construction and demolition waste. So let's say there's some construction happening. So that we classify it as inert, our construction and demolition waste. Now, if you see, the majority of the composition is of the organic waste. So
Mhm.
now what happens is that just because we are not segregating, okay, so in generally in households we produce two kinds of waste. That is the organic waste, and the other is the recyclable waste like plastic, rubber, metal, glasses, and all these kind of things. Just if all the listeners today just decide to just segregate their waste, it will actually help the authorities to process this waste. So ideally, in a lot of places, the current situation is that even if authorities are putting a waste to biofuel machine, it is not being able. They are not able to utilize it because the waste is not being segregated.
Mhm.
Now, if there's another step added where the municipal authorities decide to segregate the waste, it is a very tough process. If
Mhm.
segregating waste at household level is it's very easy. But if 10,000 households, the waste of 10,000 households, it is being collected, it is being dumped at a site, and there, if we think that we can decide, we can segregate it, It's very difficult. So the problem is that the waste segregation should happen at source.
Hmm.
That is one piece of request I would say I would do to your listeners, that please start segregating your waste. You can actually help the country to you can actually help the country to eliminate waste, what we call waste. So just segregate your waste.
Okay. And the load of segregating the waste is then shifted to the rag pickers, who alone are obviously not capable enough to, do that. And I believe, another fact that only because of this fact, that rag pickers have to do this job, only 5% of it actually gets proper segregated. I'm not sure if this data is correct. But yeah, it obviously reduces the percentage which can actually be done versus what is actually being done, right?
See,
What could be done
I think I
versus.
have a slightly different view there. That it's not that rag pickers are not able to do their job. In fact, it's the rag pickers who are actually making things happen. If you see
Yeah.
from that perspective, because for them it's their livelihood. Okay,
Hmm.
so no one can do it better than them until and unless there's a financial incentive involved there. So if you see, Pooja, that apart from the organic waste, that 17% of recyclable waste which we are talking about, it is sellable. Okay,
Mm.
because recyclable waste is sellable. The only thing in waste which is as of now not sellable is the organic waste, the 51% we are talking about. That
Mm.
doesn't hold any financial value as of now. So what generally happens is that even the rack pickers, they don't care about that. For them, for them, the organic waste is actually waste, but that recyclable waste is value. Okay.
Mm.
And now, if you ask me, for us, if we just remove the recyclable part and if we just talk about that 51% of the organic waste, for us,
Mm.
that is value.
Mm.
So, that's when the perspective comes into picture,
Mm.
that what you see in which thing you actually see value. So that 51% organic waste is actually something which needs to be resolved, and that can only happen if people start segregating the waste.
Hmm. No, I was just mentioning that because this job is now being done by rack pickers, the scale of this has been reduced. And all I'm saying this
Oh
now,
yes, yes, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
that's what I was mentioning. That this there is a scope for even doing better, but because the onus has been shifted on to the rack pickers, that's why we are not able to do what exactly should be done in this situation.
True, that's right. So if municipal authorities actually see it from that perspective, that their work is being actually done by the rack pickers, and why
Hmm.
rack pickers are doing it, because they see value in that recyclable material. And if organizations like ours, and I'm sure, I really hope that there are more organizations like ours, so that uh, even they start seeing the value in the organic waste. And if you see that in the municipal solid waste rules 2016, finally government of India even realized that there's a huge potential in this particular sector, through in which we can convert organic waste into bio CNG. So if you check out the National Biofuel Policy 2018 and the MSW rules 2016, you'll come to know that how much emphasis now the government of India has started to put in this particular sector.
Hmm. One of my students also shared this article wherein Nitin Gadkari was appealing to the public, to the companies to make vehicles which can use the biofuel
Right.
as yeah.
Absolutely. So he's one of the few ministers, I would say, who truly understands this sector, and because of him, a lot of good policies have come into
Place. Yeah.
existence.
All right. So now I want to talk about Shrey's role in the business. So how are you contributing as of now in the business?
Okay, so I joined this business at the age of 18, immediately after my school. And at that time, I was just working part time during my college days and stuff like that. But I soon realized that what really needs to happen, or what really needs to change in the organization, is the connect with the youth.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point of time, of course, Grow Diesel was known by a lot of technocrats, a lot of scientists, a lot of bureaucrats and politicians. However, I really wanted to make a connect with the youth. because I really feel that if we are able to connect with the youth, and if we are able to propagate the right message to them, uh, a lot of things can be achieved. So since then, we started doing a lot of initiatives that connected Grow Diesel with the youth. So, for instance, in year 2019, last year itself, we partnered with a Formula 4 car racing team, and that initiative was a huge hit. I mean, a lot of people started knowing about Grow Diesel because of that Formula car racing thing. Later that year, we even collaborated with Hero Cycles, in which we educated more than 2,000 students of villages of Himachal Pradesh, and volunteers from more than 15 countries participated in that. So the kind of impact we were able to create was really massive. And recently, as we speak, in next 4 days, we are also launching a mobile game to connect with the gamers even more, the gaming community. And for that, we will be launching in just next 4 days. In next 5 days, we are launching a complete domain, a complete new business vertical that will be just focusing on games, through which we can educate the youth about climate change. So we'll be developing games in such a way that actually give a message. So a lot of things. My focus has always been to connect with the youth, and to connect them in a creative manner. It's not like if I give a lecture, they listen to me and then they do something. But I feel that some creative activity should be done through which we can actually connect with the youth. So that's have been my role till now, and I think
Okay.
that will be my role for the rest of my existence.
Sounds amazing, man. Because now that you're mentioning, I realize that there is not much awareness about this entire field, I would say. So that's why, in order to connect with them, you have to be doing things which the youth is doing. And gaming is something which, that the youth of the country is actively involved in. So that's a great step, actually.
Thank you so much, Pooja.
So I want to talk about the education service part also, which is mentioned in your website, since I am associated with the edtech space from the past 7 years. So I was interested in one of the programs, the industrial training certification uh, for students that you have launched. So can you tell us a little more about the program, so that students who are interested in starting a career in this industry, they can gain some insights about this field, and maybe they'll also know what exactly they will learn in this training.
Right. So glad you asked that. Grow Diesel is an official advisor to Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise, and we are also at the Governing Council of Skill Council for Green Jobs. So we have always emphasized on the fact that there should be enough green jobs. So,
Mm,
but however, to create green jobs, what we truly feel is that first we need to create green entrepreneurs.
mm,
And how we can create green entrepreneurs is when they are mentored in the right way. So what we started doing was, in association with the ministries, of course, we started working in the education front, in which we started devising a training program through which we can actually involve the right set of people who are interested to pursue in this particular sector. But I'm currently talking about the pre-COVID times, when everything we were planning to do was offline. So there we what we had planned was that we'll be selecting a handful of students. We'll be training them at our live project sites, different government project sites where we are currently operating, and that's how we're gonna go about it. But of course, during the COVID time, and we're still in the COVID time, we realized that we have to think something which is more scalable. So what we started doing was we started working on a curriculum through which we can reach a lot of people without the need or without their need to come at our project sites. So
mm,
now what we have done is that instead of physically training them, we are preparing an online training program which a student or anyone for that matter who wants to enter into this field can attend. In that program, we have carefully included every policy that the government of India has launched about the kind of fundings that are available, and how they can actually partner with Grow Diesel, in which we will incubate startups. We'll be providing them funding. We'll be providing them market access. We'll also be providing them the technology. So our whole focus has been to create green jobs. But how are we gonna do that once we create the green entrepreneurs? So now
Mhm.
what we are focusing on, we want to associate more people, more entrepreneurs who want to be a part of this sector. A lot of good government policies are in place. Our patented technology is there, and a lot of good things are happening in this particular sector. So now we are looking for partners who would like to associate with us, and they would like to establish their own biofuel company. So that's the whole idea of training program was. I mean, training for us is not a business. It's a part. It's a part of it's a part of
CSR?
CSR, I would say, but I think it will bring us closer to the people who actually want to be a part of this industry.
Okay.
So yeah, so I think that will be a very crucial step for us.
So the program ensures job. I mean, do you guys provide placement assistance in your company, or do you motivate them to start something of their own? For example, if I'm interested in doing something in the waste management space, so how can I associate myself with Grow Diesel? So I mean, do you guys actively partner with the young and budding entrepreneurs, or do you just impart the required training and tell them do it on your own? Like, how does it actually work?
Right. So first of all, there are two segments how we are divided it. One is for the students, and one for non-students.
Okay.
Okay. So let's say that if a student is there who attends the session and he or she is really interested to be a part of it, we'll be launching an Grow Diesel Accelerator program, in which we'll be shortlisting certain students after a selection process, and we'll be training those students for 1 year. After that after that 1 year, the people who excel in that accelerator program will will do the hand holding, and we'll actually help them to implement things on ground. So
Okay.
it's not that we have just given the training and students or people are on their own. So
Okay.
there's this accelerator program which is for students. The second
Mhm.
opportunity for the non-students or the people who are looking for some new business opportunity, or people who are actually working somewhere right now but looking for some different business opportunity, for them we have this channel partnership program. If they decide after attending that session, they feel that this is something they really want to do, they can associate with us. Of course, there's an eligibility criteria to it, that how we select our partners, how we select our franchisees, for
Mhm.
that matter. So once we have done the selection, once we have selected a channel partner, we authorize that partner to use our technology. Okay, so I'll give you a very simple example, like McDonald's. So once
Mhm.
the McDonald's they have finalized the franchisee, they give them the kitchen equipments, they give them their recipes and everything, and finally through that franchise they are able to sell their burgers to the audiences.
Mhm.
So similarly, what here we are doing is that we'll be giving our patented technology to our channel partners. The channel partners can either do a government project, or they can even do a private project. And once the fuel has been produced, we give them a buyback option. So whatever they are producing, we do 100% buyback agreement. If they don't want to do 100% buyback agreement with us, there's a regulation by the Petroleum Explosives Safety Organization, PISO, that a biofuel producer can even open his or her petrol pump, biodiesel or biofuel pump, and they can even sell it to the end customers, of course, after meeting the certain criteria. So you see that there are a lot of things which are happening, and this is what we have included in that training program, in which we'll be telling everything about the policy, what is happening at the policy level, what is happening at the technological level, and what is happening in the financial level. So
Hmm.
after that, if a person is really motivated to be a part of it, then they can apply for our channel partnership program. And even if they don't want to partner with us, let's say they want to do something on their own, it's completely all right. But the thing is that we really need a lot of entrepreneurs in this particular sector.
Hmm. Right. So, do you guys strictly want to restrict yourself to biofuel, biogas specifically, or do you also plan to venture into other waste management businesses, like plastic recycling or medical waste disposal? So, I know there's this guy who is recycling the PPE mask, face mask, and converting them into bricks, which are used in the construction business. So, do you guys also plan to, for example, I want to connect with you through the channel partnership program, but biofuel is something that I might not want to do, but I want to do something else. So would you still be open to that, to taking up that opportunity and creating synergies?
So, Pooja, first of all, I would like to tell you that Blue Diesel is not a waste management company. A lot of people have this misconception that Blue Diesel
Okay.
is a waste management company. We are a biofuel company.
Okay.
For our primary business is making fuel, and for us, waste is just one of the sources. We have
Okay.
Jatofa, we have Napier grass, and there are a lot of things from which we can produce biofuel. So we are not technically a waste management company. However, since I mentioned about that point where we are really focused on connecting with the youth. So what
Hmm.
we are also doing is that we are also launching a lot of products through which are made up of recycled stuff, through which we can actually connect with the youth. For instance, we'll soon be launching a t-shirt which is made up of recycled plastic bottles. So while this concept might appear new to you, the jerseys of Indian cricket team are made up of recycled plastic bottles. And
Hmm.
I think it was first done in year 2015 or 16. I don't remember that. The concept is not new, but the concept is not that famous as of now. So yeah, we even launched this initiative of Green Box, in which we made pens and pencils out of recycled cardboard and recycled newspaper. So we are definitely venturing out into products, but not necessarily we might not end up manufacturing them. But we'll definitely support those people who are actually doing some upcycled products or something of that sort. So we also have plans to launch our eco store, which will be a marketplace for all those people who are actually selling some upcycled or recycled product. So we are working on a platform where through which we can actually support these people who are doing something of that sort.
Hmm. Sounds interesting. So, people listening to the podcast, in case if you're interested in doing anything in this space, then you can contact Shrey. How do they contact you?
So they can just visit to the website. The new website will be revamped ASAP. So they can just go to www.growdiesel.com and they'll find everything they need to know.
Great. Um, do you consider electric vehicles as the competitor of biofuel?
Uh, I'm
Very
I'm
vague
so,
question, but
I'm so glad that you asked it. And in fact, I'll give you a very good perspective to this. And at various instances, even Bill Gates has said this. I'll be telling you. So biofuels and electric vehicles are not competitors; they complement each other.
okay.
Because I'll tell you why. Unfortunately, in a country like India, where not all the households receive an electricity for 24 hours. Okay, so imagine if we have to shift from our petrol and diesel vehicles to electric vehicles. Apart from the charging infrastructure, what we need is the energy production infrastructure. Okay, and there renewable energy and specifically biofuels will play a major role. I'll tell you why. Because of course we can generate electricity from solar, but the biggest challenge with solar is that they can through solar we can only produce energy during the daytime. What
Hmm.
about the evening and at the night time if someone wants to charge their vehicles? If they want to charge their vehicles at night through solar, they first need to invest in a lot of energy
Yeah.
storage systems, which is a
The-
huge
hmm.
investment. Now, the beautiful part about biofuels, which Bill Gates has even said a lot of times, that biofuels will actually play a major role in determining the success or failure of electric vehicles. Because from biofuels, once the biofuel has been produced, we can use it to generate electricity, and in turn, we can even power the electric vehicle charging station through which the electric vehicle can be finally charged. In fact, uh, before COVID, we were also constructing a renewable electric vehicle charging station, but due to COVID, the plans have been postponed for a while now. But in Rajasthan, we were constructing an electric vehicle charging station for 160 vehicles. But this was for the commercial vehicles like e-rickshaws and
Mhm.
electric autos, those kind of vehicles. We wanted to demonstrate that how biofuels can actually help the electric vehicle industry. Of course,
Hmm.
those plans are for pause for the time being, but definitely biofuels will actually complement the and complete the electric vehicle sector.
That is a very different perspective because I asked on Twitter to my followers that would you be interested in investing in a business which is dealing with biofuel. So they were one of them responded that no, they will be more interested in investing in a company that deals with electric vehicles because electric is the future. That's what he said. So
Yeah, so in fact, in that session that we have made, we have one session specifically dedicated to the electric vehicles, and I'll send you that once it is launched. I'll send you that particular session, and after listening to that, you'll agree with me. And
yeah,
anyone
I agree to it, and probably I should share it with my Twitter team.
absolutely
Okay, so I think now we should talk a little about the challenges in the biofuel business and how your company Grow Diesel is tackling all of these issues. Um, Price issue, I want to specifically talk about it. So I have heard this notion so many times that organic is costly, right? So is biofuel cheaper than fossil fuel? So biofuels are, see, there are benefits attached to it. They are environmentally more cleaner than fossil fuels, and they produce less air pollution. They also consume the materials which are otherwise considered to be waste. So but what about the price factors? What is the trade off? Like, will it be cheaper, or will it be like it comes at its own cost? What do you think?
right. So first of all, since you compared the biofuel sector with the fossil fuel sector, uh, let me give you a very interesting fact. So the petrol that we buy, the for let's say 70 rupees a liter or 80 rupees a liter, the 70 to 80% of the cost in that 80 rupees is of the crude oil,
Hmm.
which we import from different countries.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's say that out of 80 rupees, we are paying 65 rupees just for the crude oil. Okay, I'm
Hmm.
the figures I'm just estimating, but yeah, from 70 to 85% depending on the price of the crude oil is the cost of the raw material.
Okay.
Then we are processing it, and then we are finally selling it. But now imagine this scenario where we are producing biofuel from waste. To dispose waste, a person is actually paying. Okay, so I mean, I'm sure that at the end of the month you must be paying 50 rupees, 100 rupees, 200 rupees to the rack picker.
Hmm.
Even if you are not in a lot of group housing societies, they pay this common area maintenance. So let's say if a society is paying 5,000 rupees a month, out of that, 500 or 600 rupees per month is being charged for the waste management thing. Now imagine that when we are getting the waste, we are not actually buying waste to process it. We are actually getting money to get the waste to our biorefinery site. Okay. So
Okay.
imagine we are not paying for our raw material, like in the case of crude oil, we are actually being paid to get our own raw material. Okay.
Hmm.
And now we are processing it into a premium value product, which is fuel. Okay. So in the case of crude oil, there was a 70% cost. In the case of petrol, there's a 70% cost of the crude oil. But let's say even if we want to sell at a 10% discounting or 5% discounting, for us the raw material was absolutely free. Forget we got
Hmm.
money for it. For us, it was free. So that is the kind of margin we can expect from this particular sector, and that's how we actually deal with our bulk consumers. So there are huge fuel consumers who consume fuel worth lakhs per month, And if we are giving them a 5% discounting, for them it's an annual saving of lakhs of rupees. So
Hmm.
uh, we actually give our biofuel at a discounted price wherever we are selling it to a bulk consumer. So that is the kind of opportunity we have if we are thinking of shifting from fossil fuels to biofuels. Not just the environment and societal impact, there's a very, very, very big economic impact, and government
Hmm.
of India actually recognizes it.
Hmm. I just feel such a noob knowing all this. It's such, I mean, it.
All right. I mean, for that reason, we are preparing this whole training session so that people can get the right education.
Yeah. Right. Next thing I want to talk about in the issues section is about the land issues. So biofuels require more land to be cultivated and harvested, and this is, I mean, of all the stuff that I read, this has been considered a major problem. So how is Grow Diesel tackling this problem?
Right. So, like I mentioned, that when we were producing biofuel from Jatropha or other such fuel crops, there was this issue only, which there was this land issue a lot, that
Hmm.
we first need to cultivate it and then we need to make fuel. So,
Hmm.
the land issue was definitely there. However, once we shifted from those sources to waste, those
Hmm.
problems were solved for us, because now we don't have to cultivate our fuel crop. Of course, that's one of the options, but right now we are more focused on converting waste into biofuel. Now, waste is something that we get anywhere. Okay, so we do not need to cultivate that waste. So, but yeah,
Hmm.
talking about the challenges apart from waste, if you want to manufacture biofuel from another source like Jatropha, there we need huge amounts of lands. That's right.
Hmm. That's right. Okay. So, but yeah, so companies are already engaged in this sort of business. They can definitely make a shift towards producing the biofuel from waste, right? Like that's the future.
Secondly, there's one more thing. When we talk about land, there's one advantage which I would tell you, that if we want to grow a fuel crop, when I say fuel crop, it's like something like Jatropha or Napier grass. We do not need a fertile land. We can actually grow this in a barren land, so where there's no cultivation happening. Food cannot be cooked. Food cannot be grown. Nothing can be grown. There we can grow the fuel crops. So that's one big advantage. India has more than India. I'm forgetting the exact figure. India has millions and millions of hectares of waste land.
Barren
Uh,
lands. Yeah.
Waste
Hmm.
land in which nothing can be grown. if
Hmm.
we are if we are using just 10% of the country's waste land for fuel farming, our country can become fuel independent.
Damn it. Can
So
we also use the lands of Rajasthan? I mean,
yes, so like I mentioned, that any barren land which is not fertile at all. So Rajasthan is like a very it's a very basic example. So there are a lot of land areas there
hmm.
where nothing can be grown at all. Okay, so there we can actually do fuel farming.
That's a pretty interesting fact. Now let's talk about the last issue, which I read about the availability. So biofuels are not readily available in many places. So it is difficult for people to use it actually, because if it's not available, then how are they supposed to use it? So what steps are you guys taking to make it easily accessible to people? Like what is how to distribution factor basically I'm talking about. So what steps are you taking to make the distribution happen, or to make it more efficient if it's already in the place?
So basically, what you are mentioning is probably about the retail customers, like people like you, people like me,
Yeah.
who probably either get gas cylinders, who get gas through pipelines,
Mm-hmm.
through IGL or GAIL or some other company. But the thing is that if you're talking about biofuels right now, the quantum of biofuel is so less in comparison to fossil fuels, that catering to the retail customer uh, becomes it becomes really impossible from a financial point
Mm.
of view. Like for example, what we do is that we prefer selling our entire fuel to a bulk consumer, like some
Mm. B2B.
yeah, B2B. because for them also it makes sense to buy a discounted fuel of same specification, and for us also, if we are getting a single buyer, for us it becomes security. Okay,
Hmm.
now until and unless we have huge amount of quantum, it is practically impossible to cater to the retail customers. There's one example of catering to the retail customers is, like I gave you an example, that we can even open our biofuel filling stations through which we can actually cater to the individual car owners or vehicle owners. But we, as of now, we do not want to go that way, because there's so much requirement in the manufacturing side or in the industrial side, that that first that needs to be catered, is what I personally feel. That first the manufacturing industry needs to be catered, post which will be shifting to the retail and consumers.
Hmm. Absolutely makes sense because अभी तो बायोफ्यूल का जो इंडस्ट्री है वो ही mature नहीं हुआ है, then how can we even focus on the distribution part of it? Makes sense. So that's it. I think this brings us towards the end of the podcast. Any last message that you would like to give to the listeners of the podcast?
Yeah, so I think that one thing which I've learned after being a part of Grow Diesel, after officially being a part of Grow Diesel, that whatever industry you're working in, you should not just seek profits. Okay, you should actually also think of the other two P's. So what we say is that at Grow Diesel, we are working on three P projects: projects for people, projects for planet, and projects for profits. So irrespective of what you are doing, I feel that the other two P's, apart from the profits, the planet and the people part, should be taken into consideration, because that is one thing through which our world can become a much, much, much better place. So I think that's the one end message that I would like to give to all the listeners, that focus on three P projects.
Absolutely amazing. People, profits, and planet.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Ray. It was really fun to have you here discuss about this, and thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Pooja. It was a pleasure to be a part of this. This was my first, I think, second podcast.
Okay. I hope you had fun.
I did. I certainly did.